of accuracy around any of the minutes?
Yes, correction.
Oh, thank you, sir.
There's twice that back on page 6.
Right.
It's just one that is enough.
There we go. Thank you, Vice Chair. So there's a duplication of the word "that" on the page, top of page, in the first paragraph on page 6.
Yeah.
I think it changes the meaning of the sentence, but thank you. A couple of others later in the paper, we'll see whether you pick those up as well.
I'll leave it to you then.
That's it. You started. Yeah. Right. Matters arising from those minutes. If I could just pick up on one or two things as we go. Unfortunately, it did say under para 56 that Grant Thornton will be attending this meeting to present their plan. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. That is not the case. They're not in a position to do that. That is disappointing, albeit I note that under the PSAA rules, the regulations are that you have to have done, KPI number 1 is that you've got to have delivered a plan by the 31st of April. 3rd of April. Is that right? Yeah.
So we are on track to issue with a draft plan for your review outside of.
Okay. All right. Okay. Always better if it could be done before the end of the year, but we are where we are. Recruitment by replacement. I haven't received any further updates on that, other than I believe applications open this month. Is that right? Today. Okay. Very good. So, and the expectation is that a final offer will be made and decision made by the 13th of June. So by the time we have the next meeting, fingers crossed, we'll have my successor identified, albeit I think I've previously pointed out my term of office doesn't end until 30th of September. So you'll have to put up with me for a couple more meetings. Okay. Treasury gains we talked about. Annual opinion we picked up. Longbridge Park and Ride. That's Martin, you raised at previous meeting. I think you'll note that when we come to the internal audit update, there is only now one medium recommendation still outstanding, which is good. Thank you. UK Prosperity Fund, Linda. I don't know if there was anything further. This is under item 60. Councillor Jespel raised at the last meeting the ensuring effective spending of the UK SPF by 31 March, the 88 million. You provided assurance that that money would be spent by the end of the calendar year.
Yes, so we are just closing the year-end accounts as we speak. I've got a first review meeting to see what that outturn looks like later, I think Thursday this week. So I'll know how close the region was in terms of its delivery or not against the forecast.
Okay. Thank you. And reminded me for using the microphone as well. So, Councillor Jespel, we'll get a report at the next meeting as to how we did on that. I raised the point around only making investments to authorities that had issued audited accounts. And I note that only 38% of local authorities managed to get audit opinions by the deadline. Well over 50%, nearly 60% had either had a disclaimer of opinion or hadn't had any opinion at all by the date. So perhaps when you report at the next the next meeting on the Treasury Management Policy and how we're applying that in the circumstances. Obviously, I'm pleased to note that we were one of the 38%, but it's clear evidence of the issues that the sector faces. And there was a question about independent training providers and what proportion of the training budget was spent on that. I've got somewhere in my mind that Craig may have come back to us on that, but do you know what the answer is under item 64, second paragraph? So how much of the training budget is provided by ITPs? I suppose I'm keen to know the answer because, as we'll see under one of the reports later, which is under the private session of the agenda, that is clearly an issue.
Yeah, I'll take that. I haven't picked that up, sorry. So if we either replied and we'll find it or we will reply.
Brilliant. Okay. Any other matters arising coming out from the minutes? Everybody comfortable with cover four?
Just to thank for changing the meeting date today, yes.
So no problem at all. No problem at all. Right, chair's remarks. I think I've picked up most of these. The board did approve the external audit plan, PSA point on backdrop. Can I just confirm the backstop for this year for PSA for accounts is also 28th of February, is it? Or for the March 26th account? Yeah. Which we will hit, obviously. And I've thought about plans for my successor. So I have nothing further other than I was also at an investment board meeting this morning. Work programme, which is item 6. Come ahead of schedule. Pleasing to see a lot of the actions have been completed. So thank you to the team and Craig for keeping that up to date. I do think we also just need to make sure we are capturing the actions, because I think occasionally one or two seem to not make it onto the action tracker. So we'll make sure we're doing that. That would be good. And in terms of the work programme, obviously this is the last meeting for this committee for this municipal year. So there are some provisional dates that will be put in place, but everything will be confirmed sometime towards the end of May.
That's right, Chair. Yeah, so we're pulling the calendar of dates for the new municipal year, which runs from the middle of June. They're formally agreed at the AGM of the by the authority board, but we also take those now, obviously, to the members that are appointed from their authorities for the next 12 months.
And we can also remind people that the guidance from DLUC was strongly in support of continuity from one year to another. And hopefully council leaders will be reminded of that.
We do, Chair, when we write out to authorities to remind them of the appointments that they need to make to our various committees, we make that and other points, including about appointing people who are able to attend the meeting in person.
Very good. I certainly think there's huge benefit to this committee of having continuity in membership from year to year. So I would hope that as many of you as possible would welcome the opportunity to continue to serve on ARAC going forward.
It depends on the politics of the areas. That's the reality of life, yeah.
I acknowledge the point you're making, and my point still stands. Yes, indeed.
I agree.
Okay. Right, internal audit. Oh, sorry.
Well, only to say, Chair, I shan't be here because I'm not standing in the elections in Shropshire. I felt it was time to give way to somebody a bit younger, so I hugely enjoyed ARAC. But as I'm not standing in the elections, I won't be a Shropshire councillor from whenever it is, May the 4th onwards. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all of your contributions over many years. You've been one of the longest standing members of. It's been great to have you on the committee, and we will miss you. Well, my final request will be if you could help us find a replacement who is equally diligent. I would be incredibly grateful. But thank you very much.
I shall say what a great committee it is to be a member of.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You can ask no more. Right. Nothing else. Internal audit update.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present the committee with an update on the work completed by internal audit since the previous update on within February 2025 and progress made against delivery of the 24-25 internal audit plan. During the period of this update and since February, audit work has consisted of the completion of the remaining 24-25 audits contained within the plan, alongside the unplanned audit investigation work. Within the period, 4 audits have been completed to final report status, with a further 1 report issued in draft and 1 grant verification provided. The team remain on track to deliver the 24-25 audit plan and out to an annual report to the next meeting of this committee. Further detail is provided within the body of the report, which I will talk through now. So page 24 shows a progress summary of the audits which have been completed to date within 24-25. And the 4 audits completed to final report status this period. Those are the Careers Hub, Readiness for the Procurement Act 2023, the Single Settlement Readiness Check, and the Gibson Hospitality Follow-up. There are currently 10 audits in progress at various stages of completion. 1 draft report has been issued, and a second draft report has recently been issued this week. In terms of a bit more detail, so a review of the WMCA Careers Hub was undertaken to provide assurance that the operational, financial and monitoring arrangements in place to ensure grant funding for that grant is utilised effectively. An overall opinion of substantial assurance was provided, with just one low-level recommendation identified where improvements could be made. The readiness for the Procurement Act 2023 audit was carried out to provide assurance over our readiness for the new legislative requirements within the Procurement Act, which was effective from the 24th of February 2025. An overall opinion of reasonable assurance was provided. There was one high level, 5 medium and 4 low level recommendations identified, and a further one advisory recommendation. A single settlement readiness check, an internal check, was carried out to assess the organisation's preparedness for the start of the single settlement, and in advance of the external readiness check, which is also presented at a later agenda point within this meeting. Final report was issued, again with a reasonable assurance rating, and there were 9 priority level, 8 required and 2 optional recommendations. You'll notice there was a change in terms of the designation of the recommendations for that report based on the priority level up to and including the date of the start of the single settlement. That's the reason why they changed we changed the assurance ratings from a normal high, medium or low level recommendation.
Okay.
And finally, a Gibson Hospitality follow-up of a limited audit report, which was presented on the 22nd of September 2023 in relation to Gibson Hospitality, was undertaken. The follow-up identified that all weaknesses were resolved and mitigating actions had been applied and put in place, and there was one general recommendation made as a part of that audit as well. Point 4 of the report is the provision of the annual internal audit opinion. So this is my opinion on the implementation of recommendations and also the assurance of the organisation's risk management, governance and control processes. So for this year, it is a draft opinion at this stage for the draft annual governance statement. Again, it's another point of this meeting, and a reasonable assurance has been provided. Finally, a follow-up of previous audit recommendations in the table at point 5 on page 27. You will see an update of the tracking recommendation as of the 28th of February. There are currently 9, I believe, audits with outstanding recommendations, with a variety of action dates over the next few months. In particular, adult education procurement, 1 recommendation remains outstanding against an original date of November 2024. This relates to arrangements in place for independent training providers where the outcome of the CA's due diligence assessment has resulted in inadequate or an unsatisfactory rating. The recommendation was absorbed into a wider internal governance review, which is currently in progress, and there is an expectation that that will be implemented by the end of June 2025. And also the integrated settlement readiness check. Again, more information will be provided later on in the meeting. With the external check as well, there is going to be a consolidation of recommendations and tracking of them across both audits. Let's take any questions.
Very, very good. Thank you. And obviously, we'll get into a bit of detail in the private session on the report. So I, at this stage, just pick up on the points that are contained within this public report. But first observation, obviously, you've got a lot to do before the end of the year, as it were. Obviously, pleasing to see that everything is in, well, we've got 7 audits in progress, a couple of reports being issued. So, so a lot to do, but obviously you'll report on that in due course, and that will obviously flow into your annual governance statement. Pleasing to note the positions on the Careers Hub and the Gibson Hospitality, and good to see all the follow-up of the recommendations there, as you say, on the readiness check. There was one specific point that is referenced here, which is a significant issue which must be addressed before 1st of April. I'm aware, whatever day we are, 7th or 8th of April. Are we able to confirm that that point was addressed by the date?
So I believe all of the priority recommendations were addressed on the date of the settlement.
And as you say, on the Procurement Act, we'll pick that up when we get into detail if we could. And then on the follow-ups, as you say, again, I think we'll come back to adult education and ITPs if we could, slightly later in the meeting. And I agree with your point around integrated settlement. I think there is a proposal that it will be a sort of consolidated feedback within 6 months, and it will be good to get that, which incorporates both your recommendations and those from the review by Deloitte. The only thing, other thing I was just going to observe was, and I always look at this, and you'll know that now, is how long it takes from a draft report being issued to a final report. what the process is by which things can get finalised. So incredibly impressive that it took 1 day for the Careers Hub audit, which is pleasing to see. Similarly, 1 day for the Gifts and Hospitality follow-up. So it can be done. But when it came to the Procurement Act, it took nearly 3 months for that report to be finalised. So which may reflect the nature of the topic, but we do need the reports to be finalised properly. I do recognise there are some specific issues associated with the Procurement Act, which is where you are waiting for government to provide guidance, which may have caused some delays. But just note that and encourage rapid issuance of reports once your report has been completed, if wherever possible. How's Jasper?
Yeah. This was the report on the residential procurement. Great. But I'm thinking there is more legislation coming in this year as well. So one of the pieces of legislation, maybe not just so I get it right, is the Economic and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, which will be coming in later this year. Will there be a similar kind of readiness report or a checklist in regards to that?
Thank you. That's a good question. In terms of the audit plan for next year, we are at the moment reviewing the risks of the organisation, and obviously new legislation will be one of the risks and our compliance with that. And so it will definitely be considered and presented to the next meeting of the committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Mainly positive, but some areas of concern, as the Chair has mentioned, for the Procurement Act, and some high and medium recommendations, but nothing too concerning, considering central government have struggled with the implementation. And it's a phased and collaborative approach, and so long as they undertake the recommendations, this should be fine. Single settlement has flagged a couple of issues, but again, this has meant that the combined authority and the LAs working with government and some last minute issues, and some of this is for the first time, isn't it? So understandable. Earlier comms and reports where the LA's affected is something we would raise. Really good to see the gifts and the hospitality, as the Chair has mentioned, is now being reviewed and actions have been undertaken. Would also be good to get an update following the end of June regarding the audit education, as what you've said, procurement, to ensure it has been actioned. And thank you very much for your report.
Thank you. Any other questions at this stage? Say, so any detailed questions obviously need to be picked on any detailed recommendations need to be picked up in the private session later in the meeting. But anything further at this stage?
Just nitpicking, Chair.
Oh yes.
Yeah, just when they publish the report, the spellings need to be corrected for vote. It should be V-O-T-E, not B-O-T-E. And similarly, this further down is same, V-I-T-E, as somewhere else. So it's somewhere there, but when you publish it publicly, maybe it's right to correct it. It's be online.
Page 19.
One is B-O-T-E is on page 19. There's somewhere
in
else.
favour of recommendations.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
There's another one. That's a V-I-T-E somewhere else. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a nitpicking, but it'd be nice if it in the public is correct spelling. Yeah.
It's on the front page of the item. Right. Nothing further at this stage. Item 9 on the agenda, which is the annual governance statement. Is that you, Helen, or is it Lorraine?
Which I thought you'd want to do it as you wrote it, but to do it. So this is the draft annual governance statement for ARUP to consider for approval and inclusion in the 24-25 financial accounts. You've got the draft statement in there. This is, we have a duty to make arrangements for the way in which our functions are exercised. And this document basically sets out how we comply with the requirements of good governance. Got the list of the principles there in 2.3. I won't go through them.
Put your mic on.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I don't usually think. So I hope you heard that regardless. As I said, this is the draft annual governance statement and it's for ARUC to consider and approve. I won't go through it in detail in the interest of time, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things which is a couple of quick observations. First of all, I can see that there has been quite an update to this, so thank you for whoever's authored that, which is not Matthew, because that's what the guidance says it shouldn't be. So I'm pleased to see that we comply with that guidance as well. So thank you. I can see that we've put quite a lot of effort into updating that this year, so that is appreciated. Normally, I'd say it'd be useful if you sort of did an indication of things that have changed from the prior year, but given it's such a comprehensive rewrite, I think that's probably not appropriate this year. Obviously, this then gets considered, it gets put into the annual report and accounts, which get published for the first time in June or May. When are we putting the draft? In June, and then it will be whenever we finalise the accounts. And obviously, the opinion that goes in there from Matthew and his team will reflect the final outcome. But yeah, I thought it was really good and a significant step forward. Committee members, I would sort of draw your attention to pages 24 and 25 because that's very specific in terms of governance improvement actions. What we said we would improve and what we have done during the course of the year. Myself, I'm using the word "we" there. I don't know what the authority said it would do and what it would improve. And similarly, page 26 sets out the actions developed in 25-26. So, if you do have comments, detailed comments, questions on this, please could you feed them through to Lorraine? And it would be good to get a sort of final version of this a final draft version of this to be incorporated into the draft report and accounts that get published on the website at the end of June or in June. So any detailed comments, please, could you feed those through? But no, thank you for all the work that's gone into that. This document here, this is still consultation though, isn't it? This is the updated guidance from Solace and Sitka on what an annual governance statement should be. I thought this, one, it was quite brief, so I was quite in favour of that. And two, I thought it was pretty useful actually. And I can see that you read it and engaged with it. There were one or two interesting bits in here. It does talk about the AGS must be approved by a body charged with governance or delegated to an appropriate committee, such as an audit committee. So further evidence that is permissible. As I say, caught my eye that the head of internal audit should not draft it. So pleased to see we can follow that. There's a specific reference on page 5 of this document, oversight of arm's length arrangements such as trading companies. So again, very pleased that was an initiative that we introduced a year ago, and we're getting an update on that at this meeting. 7 principles. So the one bit that I suppose caught my eye a little bit was about gaining assurance for the annual review on page 10. So what is it that we should reflect on to make sure that we're happy to approve the AGS? And I thought these points here were quite useful in terms of thinking about just a formal process by which we would confirm we're comfortable to sign off on this. So I don't know whether maybe at the meeting, certainly when we get to approve the report and accounts, or even at our next meeting, we could just do a very quick one-pager which sort of summarises how we've met the recommendations on page 10, page 136, around the assurance that then supports the AGS statement. That's okay. Obviously not including the two around police and fire. Good thought yours. But I thought that was a useful checklist, but a useful report. There is also just, Helen, I did notice under approval, it says the AGS should be shared with all elected members together with a report from the audit committee on their review. As a recommendation. I'll just leave that with you to use on. I know this is consultation at the moment rather than guidance, but that's what it says. So, anyway, so my overarching comments are to thank Lorraine for all the work that's gone into updating this. So thank you. Open up for any other questions from the members of the committee.
Just the same thing. Same thing, Chair, on the page 93. BITE, that's the word when it goes public, it needs to be corrected somewhere.
And
Councillor Martin.
Just to say, it's good to see that it's come here early, and it's very similar to what they do in Warsaw. Thank you.
Yeah, head of Warsaw. Good to know that Warsaw is very good indeed. Good, thank you. Any other questions?
Think alike.
Indeed, indeed. Any other questions, queries at this stage? I'll say, if you've got any detailed comments, please could you feed those into Lorraine before the publication of the annual report and accounts in June. Draft annual report. No. Oh, okay, thank you.
It's good actually that document attached with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that's a useful summary actually. I don't know whether you need to express thanks to Solace and Sitcom. Yeah, I think it is actually. It's a useful document, succinct and to the point. Right, item 9 on our agenda. Item 10 on the agenda, which is one referenced earlier, which is the update on arm's length companies. So is that you again?
So as you say, this is the annual update on arm's length companies. You last saw similar report released in September, so you haven't all the year since then. Stick to the proposed timetable rather than waiting a year. So we said we routinely bring this to the last meeting of each municipal year. So there's a summary of the changes that there have been at 2.3. There's nothing significant really to draw to this committee's attention. So it's a fairly routine report with some information about the companies in there. I think just two things to pick up on. The growth company, you'll be aware, is currently undergoing quite a big transformation, and work is ongoing on that. We're not really doing the legal work on that. That's being done by one of the constituent authorities, but we're obviously discussing it with them. And then the other one to pick up is Black Country Innovative Manufacturing Organisation, which you'll be aware from discussions that have been had at board and elsewhere. We're in discussions with Dudley about what's happening there, and so potentially some changes for BCIO, but nothing to directly report at this meeting. It's fairly routine, nothing particularly to catch your eye, I don't think. There might be extras that when we bring this next time, there will be some changes, particularly with
Thank you. And you're right, obviously I'm aware of both the two issues around the BCMIMO, which is still ongoing, and the growth company, which is a future development. I think I stressed the chief executive of the growth company at that board and provided an update at that point. So very much welcome noting that all of the accounts for all of these entities are up to date and filed. So that was good. I'm not sure what the accountants said for BCMIMO, but they were published. So there we go. I didn't have many other comments. I'll say I think this has really evolved over the last 12 months. So thank you to you and your team for bringing that forward. I think you picked up on pretty much everything. The only one I was just going to page 161, which is West Midlands Development Capital. It references the Brownfield Land and Property Development Fund, and then calls it the RIF, which is the Residential Investment Fund, isn't it? So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. It does both, yeah. So page 161 of the overall pack, or appendix 4. So maybe there's a third area to add in there. I think it's BL, PDF, RIF, and SIF. Is it?
It is, yes.
Okay. So we'll just
That's
merge two
on the
of them together there.
It's in the purpose at the top of that.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, in the purpose piece, absolutely. But then that also applies to under funding. It references SIF and RIF, but not BL, PDF. So that'll be and can I just clarify? It says like funding, but that funding doesn't go through this company, does it? This is just an investment management company.
It is an investment, it is a fund, it's a fund advisor.
It's a fund advisor, but
Yeah.
does the funding actually go through the entity?
No.
No, that's what I thought.
They do have a fee.
Yes, correct.
Fee that goes through.
Yeah. I just feel it. I'm not sure. This is on the following page where it says funding.
Oh, yeah,
References SIP and RIF. Those don't actually go through the company, do they?
Saying they manage that. fund.
Yeah, exactly. So we should probably just clarify that. Other than that, I don't think I have any further questions. So, okay, thank you. So I think that's come a long way. Committee members will understand, this is quite a sensitive issue in the area of local government for reasons more linked to other local authorities than to the combined authority, but it is important that we're on top of this. And you just saw it's explicitly referenced in the guidance from Somerset and Citra, so I think it's helpful. So
On that point, Chair, just to understand this is the first time came here. I believe that format of
No,
and so on.
this is the third time it's come actually. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Did we get previously compiled audit report from all these companies? I just don't remember in my head. We should have some overview of those companies, the audit report and so on.
Okay, I think to some extent that's what this report is trying to provide us with, is a status, but
They have their own audit committees.
yeah, they have all their own audit committees. The first year I was involved here, we had
MML, Yeah.
report separately to us, but that was changed.
yes.
And secondly, obviously, Grant Thornton, most of these companies are not material for the purposes of your audit either. So,
Now I
Yeah.
got my head around. Yes.
So-
Yeah. Okay.
but I do think I think it would be important if any of these had issues coming out of their audit, or modifications to their audit
Yeah.
opinions. I think it would be important this committee was informed of that.
Yeah.
I'll say I don't know what the BCM IMO opinion said, but I'll be interested to know. Okay, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. The arrangements seem in order. Thank you very much. This is the BCIMO. Will this be resolved in the next couple of months and brought back?
It'll probably be brought to the board, to be honest, rather than necessarily this committee. But Linda, do you want to comment?
Just to echo that, I mean, the conversation is continuing. We are expecting a way forward to be resolved within the next month, but then I've been waiting quite a while already. So yeah, we'll go back to board.
We can obviously provide an update at a future meeting to around wherever the board got to, but I think it is being dealt with at the board level.
Thank you.
Any further questions on that particular area? If not, thank you for noting the recommendations. I think the next thing we had was just a quick verbal update from you, Helen, on transport.
Yeah, thank you. So you're probably all aware that the Mayor commissioned an independent transport capital review to look at funding, performance and delivery of transport capital projects. And the review gave clear views about delivery challenges and opportunities. The TFWM accepted the recommendations in principle, and they're currently working with local authority partners to implement those recommendations, because it's quite clear that successful implementation will require collective effort across the region. TFWM are integrating those recommendations, should we say, into the changes that we're all making in the authority, the strategic change that's already taken part, both to deal with integrated settlement, and you'll be aware that we are looking at the best way to deliver services through the combined authorities, and we're looking at a transformation piece there, and these are being integrated into the day job, as it were, working with our partners. So I really don't think it's silent more to add at this point, and it's probably, unless anything significant happens, it's probably not one that you want to add to the agendas in the new municipal year. So any questions, as much as I might know the answers to them, and Linda might need to help me out.
Okay, I suppose one, I'd like it to be considered in the context of your plan for next year in terms of internal audit. You know, when is the appropriate next stage to follow up on the recommendations, to make sure that both the recommendations coming out of previous internal audits and other reviews and the ARAP review are all being implemented. The second thing I would just flag was there was quite a lengthy debate at investment board this morning around transport projects, investment capital projects, and there was a suggestion from the investment board that they would be interested to know what ARAP was doing with regard to this area. So maybe I'll pick up that as a separate point with you, reflecting on the comments made at the investment board this morning. Any further questions from members of the committee about this? Yeah, it remains critically important, obviously, for the authority. You know, it is a substantial amount of both revenue, but even more so capital spending, and it's vitally important that there is appropriate governance around all of this. Albeit the investment board itself obviously is quite heavily involved in signing off on spend in this regard. Okay, Peter, strategic risk update.
Thank you very much. So the key messages for this strategic risk update are contained in the slide deck. You will see that one risk has reduced, so the investment programme delivery risk has reduced. There's been a couple of updates provided on two of the other risks around financial sustainability of the CA sort of model, the mayoral-led model, and another on WMCA's resilience. And you've got a separate paper, I think, coming later on business continuity anyway. So overall, there have not been sort of significant changes, not lots of significant changes to the strategic risks this time around. And there was quite a healthy discussion at the exec board about this, and it was agreed that a thorough review of the strategic risk register should be undertaken. That is very much a sort of drawing a line sort of almost underneath this risk register, and looking and starting afresh with what are the big strategic concerns that the organisation is faced with. The timing seems really apt for that, with a new annual business plan about to be launched, with integrated settlement coming along, etc. So it felt like it was the right opportunity to start fresh and say, what is it what are those big sort of significant concerns? So I've set out a timeline for how we're going to approach that. I'm going back to the exec board in May to have a session with them to sort of to start to consider what they are. I've set out some ideas. I'll add some ideas and set out an approach, and I hope to be able to sort of see that through over the next couple of quarters of developing it. I'm saying that because there was a note that I added to the very bottom slide, which was that since I'd agreed that timeline with the exec board, one of the provisional dates you have is in September. I will see if I'm able to provide you with a sort of a new strategic risk register in September, but it could be within a stretch, but I'll do my best.
Thank you very much. I think I understand and share the view. It's critically important if these things are going to add value that they are living documents. They're being kept up to date. They're being refreshed. They're being worked on, and there is a sense here that the exec board are perhaps questioning whether that has been the case and what needs to be done to change that. That's the first point. The second point is, but it does seem like an opportune time, particularly with integrated settlement, single settlement coming in to revisit this, and maybe with a change of strategic priorities that have come about. So I understand that. Personally, I don't think the framework is necessarily the problem. It's it's what the content is and then how it's being used. So I wouldn't expect you to have to fundamentally change how you're reporting and how you're collating this information. But clearly it needs to reflect what the risks are perceived to be as of today. So, in the spirit of just pointing out slightly minor things, but worth pointing out. On page 191192, there's a risk 19, which is described as green on one page and an amber on another page. So we should probably work out which one it is.
I certainly will.
Thank you very much. So I suspect it's green, but anyway, on page 192, it just needs to remain consistent. And yeah, obviously look forward to receiving an update from you, hopefully in September, but obviously let us know. Open it up for questions. Councillor.
When we've been at previous meetings, I've been very reassured about when, in terms of looking at the risks of the finances to Westminster Combined Authority, it should be good no matter what's happened. And I suppose my curiosity is, given recent international events, how that might affect not so much the running of Combined Authority, but more, I suppose, when it comes down to months, supplies and resources, particularly when it comes to building projects, well, I imagine you'll be looking into how the tariffs might affect us all. Just wanted to see if you have a comment on that.
So yes, so there's two things I can say. One is that I meet regularly with, in particular with Transport for West Midlands colleagues. They are looking at what might this be for us, what might that look like, what might some of those implications be. So I know that they are specifically looking at. I need to speak to some of my other colleagues and see where else that might sort of have an effect. And then separately, it is something that I'll be looking at, talking to the exec board about in May as a new sort of strategic risk, more around global economic uncertainty is the phrase that I would probably sort of use, but I think that would definitely be a part of that.
Linda, do you want to add anything?
Just to say, we have discussed it at exec board. We flagged it through to Peter. It is on the radar for the May conversation, and as Peter said, not just about actually the impact on our supplies and services and goods, etc., but actually from a regional impact on the West Midlands economy is a concern, obviously, given and where we might need to target. So that's on the radar for May. So it'll appear imminently.
Just want to come in. I suppose May's only a month away. I can't imagine any big things happening in the next few weeks. I mean, I'm not a finance person, so I don't know how it affects this, but you don't expect anything to be more urgent before May, do you? I suppose.
I'm saying no, but who knows? But in accordance with my main worry would be is our cash safe at the minute, and in accordance with our treasury management strategy, our cash is relatively as safe as it can be. So I'm not expecting anything material to come through in that regard. Okay. We're not about to let any huge contracts in that sort of way at this point, without us being able to have the chance to assess what we think the position is. But never say never.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly hard to know what might happen and when it might happen in the current environment. And things could change as quickly as they changed last week. So one never knows. But you're right. I suppose I'd also add, there isn't any immediate borrowing requirements either as well.
No.
So there's a very stable position around the borrowing position of the authority as well. So I think it's more about what it impacts in the region and how it impacts on suppliers and raw material costs rather than necessarily the actual day-to-day running of the authority. But, it's very hard to be certain about anything in the current environment.
But if we look at, under the integrated settlement, we are now accountable for outcomes of the government, which will include the sort of economic growth in the region. And something like this is completely left field to the sort of plans in terms of economic growth and development for the West Midlands. So certainly something we need to be picking up.
Thank you. It's risk for us all. Councillor Martin.
Thank you for the report. And there seems a little movement on the risks actions. And are you pushing hard to get these done? Address the actions.
So yes, and there's activity obviously being undertaken. I think one of the problems with a strategic risk register like this, and it's something that I do need to think about with the next version as well, is just how you sort of capture all of that information, how you capture so much of that detail. I think at times there's almost too much detail in here. And so there will be activity that will be being undertaken, but won't necessarily be sort of genuinely captured in here on a regular basis. And so I think better understanding what are we saying the risk is and what is it that we're going to be looking for, rather than sort of broad phrases. I always think about the sort of public transport one, which just tries to capture everything across all of our public transport activity. It's just too much, and there's no way I think that we can succinctly try to tell sort of the story across once a quarter in one little set of information. So I think the work is going on. It's the problem in terms of capturing what's relevant and how do we sort of update this beast. So that is definitely a challenge, I think, for me in looking at what that new risk register looks like.
Then it is a strategic risk register.
Yeah, it's not.
And obviously there are detailed operational risk registers below. This is a strategic risk register. It's the big risks. In a normal situation, you wouldn't expect huge changes, and there should be a strategic direction. We should be pursuing it, and there will be tweaks around the edges. But to Councillor's point, these are not normal times, and therefore, there may well be more volatility. But then you also bring in single settlement, and you bring in, as well as the external factors, single settlement and everything else. So that's why I think it is, Councillor Martin, I think it is an opportune time for a refresh to reflect the new strategic priorities, the new funding arrangements, and sadly, the new global volatility that could impact the organisation in a number of different ways. And you're quite right, Linda, to point out that actually the way the authority will be assessed is different in the single settlement as well. I think we pick that up a little bit later, actually. Any other questions on the risk register? Okay. Thank you.
I think the time frame is very nicely written.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we note that report, which brings us on to Jyoti, who's on the screen, I think, on this occasion. Is that right?
Hopefully, IT works.
We can. There's a very small picture of you.
I'm trying to switch the camera on. Shall I start the summary if you can hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully it will work shortly. Hello, everybody. So here I am. The report presented today is just part of the quarterly update on the programme assurance and appraisal activity undertaken by my team. So the key purpose of the report is presented in section 1.1, and this reporting period covers October to December 2024. So there's various different evidential information throughout the summary provided as well. And the key report summary then for this section is reported in section 9.19. So there's nothing to note of significance. The programme assurance and appraisal activity remained steady over this reporting period. It was also business case maturity generally remains on trend and relatively strong. Maybe one key point to elaborate slightly is just point C in that summary section, which has highlighted flag to the finance director the slight increase in the condensed assurance and appraisal requests, which had been requested more recently. But in the table 9.1.1, it's still a relatively low period, low number in comparison to the other business cases and appraisal reviews that the team have undertaken. And again, a point of confidence, there's been discussion today already at the committee around preparation for integrated settlement year one. There's a brief summary there of the report which is going to be presented later. So the business case activity and the assurance framework was identified as core as part of that review, which is encouraging. And also in this period, we were able to provide a slight refreshed copy of the assurance framework to MHCLG as part of that readiness check as well. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Very comprehensive and simple to follow report, and obviously it's now a consistent format, so we're sort of getting into the swing of these things. But just a couple of quick things for me. Apologies, I sound like a bit of a broken record on change requests, but I was interested to see your comment that all the change requests were simply time extensions. My own experience over many years is that an extension of time invariably leads to an increase in cost, but we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of those. Anyway, it is what it is for this last quarter. And I say just to note, obviously the fact that the SAF was noted by Deloitte in their review as an important part of the governance framework that exists. So thank you for the work you've been doing, and obviously it's good to see that is being acknowledged by an external assessor. But it equally means, this is a really important part of the work we do, and it needs to continue to be so. So thank you. Open it up to other questions from other members of the committee. Linda, did you want to say something?
Because I was just on the back of your comments there, actually, and it's really, really helpful. And obviously, numbers on the table. Those of you who are at our local authorities who access our money, we are an accountable body. We do have to have an assurance framework within which we have, assure value for money and appraise business cases through. Joe and the team work tirelessly to try and make sure that can be as flexible as it can be based on the numerous types of developments and cases that do come through. But obviously, from an assurance perspective, noting the Deloitte report, how important this document is and how important it is actually from an internal audit and from an external perspective. Just worth us, I think, noting that we do get should I say bad press, particularly through our Metropolitan Authority colleagues about its application and how long it takes to get through our process. And so your support in terms of the need for its continued existence and the assurance that it provides this committee in terms of the value for money is much appreciated back at your Mets.
Okay, noted. I'd say I attend most of the investment board meetings. I see how this single assurance framework is being applied to ensure that proposals that come to the investment board for sign off have been subject to this review, and how important it is to that. I think I would note that under the current chair of the investment board, actually, there's been quite a bit more pushback on the Mets and the other bodies to make sure that they respond to requests. And one of the big things around change requests, I won't name the two bodies concerned, but there's been a huge number of change requests that have had to be asked for, and it certainly hasn't been Jyoti and her team that have been dragging their feet around some of those requests. So Yeah, I support what you say.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this report at this stage? If not, thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you.
Right, noted that report. So we're now on to the business continuity programme. Who's Keely's appeared on the screen as well. Hello, Keely.
Hello, afternoon.
So we're although actually we're slightly ahead of schedule, which is good. Thank you. Chair. Just pick out any key points from your paper and then we'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think for me, just key points. One thing to highlight is just progress on recruitment. So we've successfully recruited to one of the roles and that person will be starting with us on the 28th of April. We were unsuccessful in the first round of interviews for the officer, but the second round of interviews are happening on Wednesday. So I'm hoping that will come to fruition and they should be joining us late May, early June, all being well from a timescales perspective. Two other kind of pertinent points are the progress on ambassadors. So we're looking for that to be put into roles throughout the whole of the combined authority so that actually has some gravitas between collecting information. And then secondly, progress with regards to training, exercising and validating. So there's an initial draft plan that is now kind of in internal peer review, and the framework, although behind in timescales, is now with, I like to call them critical friends, internally to review that document ready for launch once my team sort of joins us and they've kind of understood the framework. I'm conscious that I don't want to launch it until the full team have fully understood those. So although behind in some areas of the programme, other areas progressing really well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for producing a written report. This time it was very comprehensive. Last time when you gave the verbal report, but there was so much in it. I think it's helpful to have it in written form this time. Note your comment. That was the one thing I picked up around, challenges in building the team and the resource pool that you've got. Obviously some progress, but it's not quite where you want it to be, but hopefully we'll get there in due course. And thank you for acknowledging the comments we've made previously around the importance of comms programs around this. I remain very firmly with the view that it's absolutely critical people know and are regularly reminded of what are the key elements around a business continuity plan, such that should incidents happen, they know what to do. And that those things need to be tested occasionally, I think is the other point that we've highlighted previously, isn't it? There's nothing like doing simulations to sharpen the focus, highlight the issues, highlight the omissions that can sometimes exist with regard to these things. But no, thank you for the paper. Open up for any other questions. That's the Martin.
This was an audit risk previously, wasn't it? So it's good to know we've got the action plan and we can monitor and track its progress. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from members?
Just to understand, because I couldn't remember in my head the delay to recruitment for experienced as a result of an internal recruitment freeze in August. And what was the reason for freezing those recruitments?
So members may call back over the summer, we had uncertainty around the funding coming in from government. So this is about that's 250 million that was promised from the previous government. No longer then was available when there was a change in government, and so we took I took action as the CFO of the authority at that point to have put on hold, have a recruitment freeze in place, and only essential posts and essential procurements went ahead during a set period of time to ensure that we were not exposing ourselves to undue costs until we were clear on what funding we had. So that's why that was at that point.
Thank you, Linda. That helps. Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
That's that.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that question, if I may. How will the increase of national insurance contributions impact our recruitment?
So we actually have, we have like local authority, so we will get that reimbursed. So they've already calculated a figure at CLG in terms of how much each individual or local authority and each combined authority will get, and they will be paying us that, reimbursing us that cost back. So it's a neutral financial impact for this area of the public sector.
Very tactfully put, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Keeling? If not, I'm dying to know what you would like to call people rather than what you feel you should when you actually call them critical friends.
Critical friends are better than best for me, as long as they're friends at the end.
It's very important that you get their input. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, everyone.
Right. Continuing the pace. Data Protection Information Processing Annual Update. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the report. Some interesting stuff in here. So yeah, again, if I could ask you to just pick out key points that you may have, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Chair. So hopefully the members have had a chance to look at the paper. Just to pick up on some of the key elements that are currently ongoing. I suppose the biggest thing that's currently afoot is really the development of AI and the impact of AI on how we work going forward. So it's really quite an interesting space at the moment in terms of information governance. Obviously, AI is heavily dependent on information governance because obviously it's going to pick up on the information we hold and the quality of that information. And as a combined authority, we have recognised that, and it's something that we have really sort of picked up on over the last, I would say, six months, and it's probably the key challenge that we face, and probably all public sector bodies face in terms of addressing that. So sort of trying to address how we are looking to take that forward, it's really a case of well, starting from the top. We're quite fortunate that Mike Walters, who some of you may know, quite a senior director, has been appointed to lead on this task, and he is putting in place the infrastructure that will result in sort of managing information governance. We have also really sort of focused down on a strategy in terms of how we deal with new types of technology, particularly around AI. And so, for example, in terms of Copilot and in terms of ChatGTP and all those sort of news type of apps which you members may have heard about, and in terms of how we manage those and ensure that we can process data effectively and in a manner that is compliant with the legislation. So all of that is really sort of like the space that we're currently in terms of that area. To provide assurance to the committee, I think what I would really sort of focus on is really two aspects. The one is that I think as a combined authority, we really have sort of looking to trying to get to grips with this particular area. We're quite fortunate that we've got links with other combined authorities. So as data protection officer, I'm sort of linking in with all the other data protection officers for all other combined authorities across the country in terms of making sure that we are sort of trying to put in place common standards in terms of how we manage this particular space. I think the aspect that I'd also sort of particularly focus on is, and I think this is a little bit of a compliment to this particular committee, is the focus that this committee has placed on this particular area, because the scrutiny that has been placed on information governance is really welcome. As a data protection officer here, I think there's a lot of pieces of work that in the combined authority that have taken place which would not have really had the momentum if this committee hadn't sort of added that sort of weight behind them. Committee will be aware of cyber essentials and particularly other areas as well, and that is particularly really welcome from myself, and long may that continue, Chair, for whoever takes over from yourself. So those are the real sort of areas that we're really sort of focusing on. In terms of other areas which members may be interested in, FOI and subject access is an area which, as a combined authority, we don't really see the same sort of impact that, for example, local authorities may see, because we don't have the numbers that they do. So it's an area that we are able to particularly manage probably more effectively than other types of public bodies because of the numbers. And so that's probably not so much of a concern. But our real focus for the year ahead is really around how we deal with modern technology and the pace of that technology, really, to ensure that information governance is maintained, because it is something that is moving at a very quick pace. So, Chair, if the members have any questions around the paper, I'd be quite happy to answer those.
Very good, thank you very much. You've picked up on a couple of things I was going to just flag up. The AI point is a really interesting one, and actually what you've flagged, you know, there were many dimensions to it, but two very clear dimensions. One is, as you say, the amount of information that is produced by the authority, which can then be captured through AI and then used, and how do you make sure that is, as you say, accurate? And I think your paper around from sort of parent 220 downwards, 222 in particular, is really good on that aspect, actually. And I think that's an area that many organisations fail to even acknowledge, that actually the AI is one of the strengths of AI is it can pick up all this information that's in the public domain, and therefore, you know, there is an obligation on us to make sure it is accurate, and there is only one version of it, etc., etc. So I really welcome the comments you've made about that. Do you want to comment? The other dimension is obviously the extent to which AI is being used within the organisation. Do you want to just comment a little bit further on that?
Yes, Chair, absolutely. So, so Microsoft is our key sort of IT provider, as it is with probably most public bodies, and the latest version of that is E5, and that includes quite a lot of elements which can be added onto it. So we are currently piloting a number of co-pilot pilots which are being allocated to staff, and that's been done in a controlled manner. So forgive me if members might be already familiar with co-pilot. Is essentially a IT tool which allows the searching of the IT estate and also the global internet to sort of produce documents and so forth. So we're currently piloting that in a controlled manner, and those are licenses that have been issued to a number of teams, and we're looking for feedback on how they're using it and how it's been utilized. We have blocked a number of other applications which do a number of similar sort of stuff. So people might be familiar with ChatGPT, which is the sort of widely equivalent of that. And there are others as well. So we're trying to keep control of that and trying to do it in a controlled manner. We are currently with the Alan Turing Institute also engaged with them to work on a AI pilot around doing business cases for the region. to trying to get funding, and that is again in a more controlled manner. I think the biggest challenge that we have around all of this area is around, to a certain degree, culture, because a lot of the information we hold for staff and generally might be around sort of situations around they're really looking to create the information and store it and have access to it. What we are, in terms of information governance, interested in is version control, labeling, and all of that sort of area. So this is our sort of area that we're trying to explore that within, is Microsoft Purview, which is Microsoft's main offering in terms of automating all of that. That will have an impact on how people work on a day-to-day basis and how they create and store data. So it's a journey that as an organization we have to go on. I think we're quite fortunate because all other public bodies are in the same space, and all other organizations, I would imagine, are in the same space as well. And we're sort of, I'm very keen to sort of link in with those, and my colleagues in other combined authorities are in the same boat. So we're very much sort of exploring that sort of dimension. We are currently about to commence a pilot where we're going to sort of roll out Microsoft Purview in a number of controlled areas to see how it works in terms of labeling, document management, and just to give you an overview of that, what it essentially does is it tracks data across the IT estate and how it's used, and it controls how it's used. So, for example, if somebody was to use it beyond the policy, a particular set of data beyond the policy that is set against it, it would set warnings up and authorizations up against it. So that's it's almost a case of the AI is there, but also the tools are there to manage it, and it's how we embrace those tools, which I think is the key challenge that we face.
Okay, thank you. I use AI occasionally in work that I do, and I see the value of it, but I equally I have a degree of apprehension about it as well. I'm aware that there are parts of the legal profession that are having extensive use of AI in the way they undertake work. I don't know if that's anything that you're thinking about in the context of your team, but I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm reassured to hear that we're going about it in a controlled fashion, because I think that's absolutely critical. Both, I say, in terms of how we ensure the quality of the data that we have and that which can be accessed by these AI tools, but also how we're using it internally. Can I ask a couple of specific comments on your report? In para, well, actually, I think you've answered the question on 215, 216 about freedom of information subject access requests. My instinct was that those were pretty low numbers, and I think you've confirmed that in comparison with many local authorities, they are low numbers, and therefore your ability to deal with them is pretty high. Albeit, obviously, there was this note about only 40% of SAR requests were processed within the deadline. I don't know if there's anything to comment on that. And then my other question was just on the number of information security incidents. You said there were 20 in total. I don't know how that compares with previous years. You haven't given a comparative for that, but it'd be good to know. Again, feels like an incredibly low number, albeit, as you point out, you don't include any cyber attacks, which I assume are hundreds, if not thousands, every day, if you're like every other organisation in the country. But yeah, a couple of sort of quick questions on SARs and how you respond to them, and secondly, incidents and the number of 20 and how that compares with previous years.
Yeah, so just touching on the point of cyber attacks, you're absolutely right. The cyber defense systems are constantly tracking cyber incidents. But in terms of FOI and SARS, we don't get the numbers which members might experience at their local authorities. It's we don't have, in terms of SR subject access requests, we don't have the same number of types of processing of data that you would experience at a local authority. We don't have the, for example, social services, housing, which produce quite labour intensive subject access requests. So our numbers are really low on that. FOI would again be a lot lower than what you would experience at a local authority. Where we sometimes sort of suffer is really we're not geared up to deal with real big challenges for subject access requests, which to a certain degree you can't resource for just the one-off one, and sometimes they can be quite difficult for us to manage because you know we're not really sort of geared up to dealing with quite a labour intensive subject access request. But I think generally speaking we're very good at dealing with those. What we always try to do is keep people informed. So if we're not going to meet deadlines, we engage with requesters, and generally speaking, in my experience, that works because usually complaints come in when people feel that they're being ignored. But if you tell them that, you know, we are dealing with this, but it's taking longer than expected, it usually you know, you can work with requesters. So that's an area which may well grow in the future, particularly around FOI. I don't really see it around subject access requests growing greatly. Generally speaking, a lot of subject access requests we can deal with business as usual because of the low levels of personal data involved.
Okay, and just very quickly, I'd say 20 incidents in respect of information security. Again, how does that compare with previous years?
So it's probably on the same sort of numbers. So this is an area that we're particularly interested in because, generally speaking, I think my personal suspicion is that there is a slight element that we could improve reporting, which might boost up numbers. So in the years ahead, we might see greater numbers because we're going to do some work on this. But those will probably be low-level incidents. We're very confident that the major incidents are always reported to us, and we manage them. But yeah, I would imagine that colleagues in other organisations will probably say that looks quite low. But it's probably because the low-level incidents are being managed at business level and not reported up, but we would like those reported up. So we're going to look towards trying to increase that level of awareness in terms of we'd really do want to know about those as well.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Yeah, you again guessed what my next question was going to be, because I, you know, first of all, reassuring that nothing needed to report to the ICO. I was just saying another organisation I'm involved with had a huge push on reporting of near misses from a health and safety perspective. And then, surprise, surprise, we had a huge number of new reports coming through, which was a positive thing. So, yeah, the extent to which you promote the reporting of incidents will probably lead to more incidents being reported. And that isn't necessarily something that we should be worried about. It's, you know, it's indicative of actually people being aware of the issues and flagging them, and then they can be dealt with and addressed. So thank you for that. No further questions for me. Councillor Martin.
Thank you for your report. This is a key risk for most organisations, and it's good to see proactive actions are being taken. In my councillor role, I've had many training sessions on this. Can I ask you, with regard to the combined authority, is the training mandatory for all staff so they're aware of their obligations under the Data Protection Act?
It is, yes. So we have a system which controls mandatory training and all other offerings of training. It's called Learning Pool, and that has two aspects relevant to this particular topic on there. One is particularly around data protection, and the other one is around cyber security. It's quite a relevant question, really, because it's something that we're currently working on at the moment, myself and colleagues within my team, around sort of how often we do that mandatory training. But just generally on training, my particular view has always been that whether you call it training or awareness, because a lot of this is trying to keep this sort of subject in the forefront of people's minds. It's an overall package. So we have the mandatory training, and we're looking really to move that to every 2 years. You have to do the mandatory training. But the real aspect within that is to ensure that in that space within those 2 years, that we as a team can really offer to colleagues real sort of awareness through other aspects of knowledge. So that could be the various channels that we have available to us, whether it's the weekly newsletter that everybody gets, whether it's through sort of events that we hold. So we're looking particularly around November to hold a week around cybersecurity. Really timely, because that week, I think it's the 5th of November, is National Cybersecurity Week. So we want to tie that in there. So it's an overall package that we're looking at in terms of awareness and the training, which I think is a real key, rather than just sort of forcing people to do, you know, a 45-minute training session.
Thank you.
Nothing other than to say I completely agree. Any other comments, questions? No. That's all.
I think this is, it's very satisfying to understand that this work is very good. Yeah. The two requests for appeal for information on commissioner, I think this very, I believe is very good actually. If it's only two people who ask for the information, otherwise local authorities are here and there everywhere. The only question that came to my head, Mr. Sangha, is when you mentioned there's a new director going to be appointed. Who is there appointed? Mr. Walter? Yeah. So I'm trying to think what is missing in there. We need to have another director on the top. So I'm just trying to understand in my head, where from audit point of view, the value of money issue. So how we fit into the management part, having another director on the top, what we already have. I think that you're doing a fantastic job here, in my view. So for getting another one, somebody need to give some kind of understanding where the value of money comes in.
Linda.
I'm probably not the best person to answer this question, but it's not a director above myself. So it's across the whole area, so that they will cover digital and data, which is traditionally IT, which has always had a sort of a lead director.
Oh, you've muted him. That's a bit rude.
Can you hear me?
Linda was going to pick that up for us, if that's okay.
So this is part of the ongoing.
Yeah.
Part of the ongoing transformation programme being led by Laura Shove to make sure that we are robust and our resources are directed in the right place. So this isn't an actual new role, if you like. This is actually repurposing an existing role to make sure that actually the data and information, the data digital information parts are actually more coordinated under this one individual. So it's rather than it's actually being a new post that's costing more money, actually it's a reallocation and just a bit of reshuffling to make sure that we are doing things in the best, most joined up way.
That helps, Linda. And I was thinking, well, why are people on the top? Yes, thank you.
And just to add to that, the reason why I mentioned it was really a selfish interest, because I know Mike has a particular interest in this area, so that was the particular sort of reason, and I think it will give a real focus to information governance and add a real great value to this particular area beyond all the other aspects that he needs to deal with.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any other questions on this particular report? If not, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for the report, and reassuring to to see where we are, but also the fact that you're very alert to the emerging issues, which is clearly critical in the world of IT and information governance. So thank you. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Integrated settlement readiness check. Who's picking that? Hello. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Daniel. For the past year, I've had the pleasure of being the program manager for the integrated settlement. So I've been working with colleagues.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been working with colleagues from across the combined authority in preparation for receipt of the settlement. So before receiving it, we were kind of mandated to take part in a external readiness check, which was conducted by Deloitte. The kind of report set out the findings. Overall, we were deemed as being either meeting or the core expectation or being on a trajectory to do so, which I think is a positive affirmation of our current maturity, while of course acknowledging that there'll need to be an evolution in light of these settlements. The recommendations, I think many of them came out. I don't think came out as a particular surprise. We'd already done a kind of internal readiness check prior to the Deloitte coming in, and so we've now created a consolidated action plan which combined the recommendations from the Deloitte report alongside the findings of our internal check. Today, the government have now confirmed that the report will be published in full tomorrow. So we're expecting that to be published alongside a range of other integrated settlement related documents. And then we will be required to report on our progress in meeting the recommendations to government in November of this year. So I'll pause there to see if there are any kind of questions or comments on the content of the report.
Thank you very much. I'd say we picked up a little bit because earlier in the meeting when talking about the internal audit readiness check, and obviously I hope that was very helpful in terms of then preparing the organisation for when Deloitte came in and did their review. And we picked up on a couple of things around the urgent recommendations as well. I don't know if you wanted to add anything further about particularly those two points that were highlighted.
Yes, correct. Yes, so I think out of the kind of 20 recommendations in the report, 2 were highlighted as urgent, so things for us to kind of action as quickly as possible. So both actually have now been kind of progressed and picked up. So Joke is on the call, and I think her team have already responded on the point around the kind of single assurance framework and updating that in light of the settlement. So that has now been updated, and I think is with the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government to confirm that that meets their expectations. I've also been working closely with Peter to think about our current risk management framework and practices, again, to make sure that they are kind of updated. And then the kind of second point on some of our financial controls, again, I think we've been kind of quite careful to ensure that we have adequate processes in place for year one. I think we're conscious that there actually probably won't be that much in the way of kind of using the flexibilities for year one, but we very much have been working with colleagues in finance to ensure that we have the correct kind of reporting procedures and controls to ensure that we are managing it as expected.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was the sense I got from the report, was actually in this first year, there's quite a lot of continuity. But I think Linda made a point earlier about the measurement of our performance under this framework is going to be fundamentally different to how we've operated historically, and making sure we've got the KPIs to support that is going to be critical. Linda.
Yeah, I just wanted to just come in on that. So I think this report is hugely positive in terms of its content and in its assurance that it should be giving you as the committee around the validity and the weight of the work that's been undertaken across the combined authority, across the whole of our governance and our preparedness to take on this integrated settlement. Yeah, I mean it's 389 million. We're only one of 2 in the country, and the rest of the UK will be looking to us to make sure that if it's worked or not. So I think all credit to everybody that's been involved right across the organisation, and I think it's great, and it shows, as I say, the level of maturity now that the CA is starting to get. I think critically from an exec perspective, what was pleasing to me was that actually no surprises in there. So there was nothing in there that we sort of aren't considering or thinking about anyway. And the critical piece now for us as an organisation will be to wrap and ensure we pick up all of those recommendations, because this isn't just about the integrated settlement now. You know, we are spending we've just approved a £1.2 billion budget for 25-26, of which the integrated settlement is a funding source of 389 million, but it's not 1.2 billion. So we've got to make sure that we operate as an organisation as efficiently as possible by taking all of these recommendations and making sure that those recommendations are wrapped into the transformation programme that the Chief Executive is running to make sure the whole organisation running the whole 1.2 billion actually operates effectively and efficiently. This isn't just about siloing this in terms of the integrated settlement, and that's what we're making sure from an executive perspective that we'll do.
Thank you. Open up to the committee for any questions on this. Councillor.
I think to me it's mind-boggling. Lots of recommendations. Is it 22? I think somewhere. Yeah, some recommendations. On number 12, actually, I was talking in my head. I thought there's more work coming on, more money coming in, and there will be lot more work to be done. And it says, the recommendation 12 is page 241. Actually, it says to reduce the number of manual inputs. Multi-year forecast. I'm just trying to think there must be a magic how you do it, because there's more work going to be there. So I'm just trying to understand if somebody can just give some position where I can say yes, it has to be done anyway. So I just not clear to actually. On recommendation number 12, financial and performance management is 241. Page 241. Priorities for year 1.
So that will be, I mean, we run a, there is a module that we can have as part of the finance system that is about multi-year financial planning and forecasting. So you're rolling your forecasts all the time instead of actually what we do at the minute. The current system allows us to financially manage in year,
yes,
not roll forward. So actually Louise is leading the team to implement this module. That means actually when we get to a multi-year settlement, we're not only forecasting for what we're going to spend in year, we will be rolling forward all the time in terms of the medium term, which will get us a greater clarity over what we're spending longer term. So hopefully that will, and that means that we're not running as many manual inputs in terms of the forecasting, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
You know, that has to be right in this sort of area.
Yeah.
It has to be right. Okay. Any further questions on this report? I suppose we talked earlier about the fact that obviously we would welcome further feedback on this in due course. Now, when you consolidate these findings with the findings from internal audit and you're reporting back on that, and obviously the report that will come out from government tomorrow. So consolidating all that and then reporting back to this committee in the autumn, I think would be really valuable. So if we could make sure we pick that up in the forward plan, that would be great. But thank you for all the work you've been doing and helping us be as well prepared as we appear to be in receipt of this. And yeah, exciting times, but you know, bring some new challenges as well. So thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Be good. Right. I see that Ben has joined us. I can see him on the screen. Hello, Ben. Nice to see you again. Good afternoon. So we've received your annual update on health and safety. As you've probably seen, just a quick update from you, highlight any particular key issues you wanted to raise, and then we'll open it up to questions. So.
Thank you, Chair. So the update covers the second year of the current 3-year health and safety strategy. We've looked to build upon our previous progress and drive continuous improvement as part of that. I won't go into all the detail of the key achievements which are in the table within the report. Obviously happy to answer any questions on those. Those are also supplemented with the key activities of the TFWM Delivery Directorate, Technical Services Unit Health and Safety Team, and the Metro Owners Safety and Assurance Team. This is the first time we've reported on their progress within this report. We do work closely with those teams, and the WMC Health and Safety Team has oversight of the work they undertake. In terms of our current position, following a strategic review of the health and safety function during the last financial year, the WMCA health and safety team is now transferred from the Integrated Transport Services team within TFWM Directorate to the People and Culture Services function within the Chief Executive's office. That change occurred in January 2025. The change is designed to support wider development, integration and visibility of the health and safety function as part of the wider People and Culture Services activities. We've obviously been very mindful to ensure that the support to TFWM has been retained and they feel supported. And any immediate changes which we needed to implement to ensure the ongoing effective delivery of health and safety following the transfer have been implemented. That's included a review of the governance and reporting arrangements, as well as updates to the revised structure. In terms of areas of concern, there aren't currently any specific areas of concern or items for urgent improvement. We're obviously keen that everyone continues to fully integrate health and safety into their operational norms and practices. And also we're looking to review the operating model. So as part of the operating model for health and safety, we're looking to update that so it's scalable. We can continue to support the growing combined authority. That's part of the wider piece of work to review the People and Culture Services target operating model. There'll be some key focus on delivery and priority programs of work, which this committee covers many of. So transformation program, mayoral manifesto, bus reform is obviously huge, further devolution and the annual business plans and place-based and functional strategies. A key item to draw out is we're currently reviewing the placing of wellbeing within the organisation. That currently sits with the EDI and wellbeing team, but we are looking to uncouple that and make that part of the overall health and safety offer, with the health, safety and wellbeing team being created to support that overarching holistic view of support for staff in those areas. In terms of the annual delivery plan for next year, that's been provided as an appendix to this report. Items include the review of the health and safety policy, so that's due for its 2-year review. So we'll do a full review of the 3 sections of that, which will be signed off by Laura, hopefully. We're introducing our safety management system compliance review, so that will create a baseline report for each of the directorate level areas across the CA. We're looking to run a further health and safety week. So we ran our first one last year. We plan that to coincide with European Week for Safety and Health at Work. And we're looking to further embed the Safety Differently culture campaign and also our VFL programme. And obviously to make sure that we're doing everything as we should. And we've got an internationally recognised verification of how we're managing health and safety. We're looking to retain our 45001 standards. So in summary, obviously as part of the health and safety being part of the People and Culture Services, we're looking to do a combined People and Culture Services strategy going forward. That will include health, safety and wellbeing. And we just want to make sure that get further involvement and participation so we can all drive our health and safety agenda forward. Any questions or comments?
Fantastic, thank you very much. First of all, I noticed your screensaver or the image you use reflects you in People and Culture Services. So good to see that's all being updated as we go. You've answered a number of the questions I was going to have. Context of the organisation was something that caught my attention, but you've already flagged a few of the things that you are mindful of that will be impacting integrated settlement, bus fronting and everything else. Health and Safety Week, again, it's interesting to see the similarity in this presentation to what we just heard on information governance, isn't it? And the use of Cyber Awareness Week, Health and Safety Week. You know, they do have an important role to play. It's important that a light is shone on a particular topic to capture people's attention. I noticed successful recertification retention of ISO 45001. Obviously, pleasing to see that that has been retained. You mentioned the renewal of the policy as well. I think I challenged you last year, Ben, to say it's great to see all the things you've achieved. Is there nothing that you need to flag to us as an area of improvement? And you've put in a paragraph now saying you haven't got any specific areas for improvement. So I'll keep challenging you to identify things that you might want to improve. But at least you've acknowledged the question this time around. I say that with a smile on my face, by the way. 2 things maybe you could just comment on. And I'm stealing a point from Councillor Martin to some extent. Under health and safety e-learning, you referenced mandatory courses are available via learning. Are they mandatory? And if they are mandatory, how do you make sure that people complete them?
Yeah, so we work closely with the organisation development engagement team. The learning pool platform is managed by them. We monitor the progress on a monthly basis. That goes via the monthly board report to various forums. We're up at about 98% for the display screen equipment course, and then around 77% for the introduction to health and safety and also the fire safety awareness courses. That's continually monitored, and there is a process being put into place for escalation. There's going to be a drive coming up very shortly across all mandatory courses across the CA to try and get as many of these to 100% as possible. And we're currently working with OD&E on a refresh cycle, so how we sort of roll these out again in a different way, so with a knowledge check, just to make sure we don't have skills fade and the skills that these important courses provide are maintained.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to hear, that it is being monitored and the numbers sound pretty good. Although, 98% sounds better than 70% for obvious reasons. So, and then the last question I just had was on your point around 4.12 about arrangements in relation to management and contractors. I can say this because it's in the public domain, but another organisation I'm involved with, very tragically this year we had a contractor, a fatality of a contractor who was not following the safe systems of work, sadly. But it is absolutely critical, my experience from that situation is it's absolutely critical that we are proactive in the way we manage contractors. We do have obligations around them, and I'm pleased to see that is, in your words, robust. I encourage you to maintain that because it's critically important. Open it up to other questions from anybody else. Anything else for Ben? Thank you for the report. We'll put you higher up the agenda when we've still got a bit more energy going next year, Ben, don't worry. But thank you very much for the report. It is very helpful, and it's great to see all the things that are being achieved. And next year, I'll look forward to having at least one area for improvement that you can flag to us for the final for the next year. All right.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Right. I think that brings us to the private part of the report. So just to note, in accordance with Section 100A of the Local Government Act, the public press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, as they are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information as specified by the Act. Is there anybody we need to exclude from the meeting? There isn't. And I've stopped the